Well, apparently Rishi, or wishy-washy as I like to call him, has suffered a massive blow due to a new poll, according to this article, and they say that Rishi Sunak's hopes of reversing Labour's lead appears to be in tatters after the Tories dropped to 20 points behind Labour again in this week's tracker poll. It's no surprising, is it? I mean, when he took over the Tories, unelected I might add, he put himself forward saying they'd make a bonfire of EU laws, which never actually came to fruition, did it, in my eyes, and appeared, if anything, only to actually shackle us to the EU via his Windsor framework deal that he appears to just love to boast about. And not only things to do with Brexit, but let's face it, he's not exactly popular, is he? He often appears to me as some sort of broken version of Theresa May's Maypop, but he also said he'd stop the boats, didn't he? Whilst appearing to not actually accept the amendments put towards the bill to actually tighten it up. I mean, he could have, from what I'm aware, actually accepted those amendments instead of putting them to MPs, but he didn't do that, did he? He put them to MPs knowing they'd more than likely vote them down because of Labour's help. Let's face it, Labour, if anything, only want to actually get us closer to the EU, and actually, in my eyes, actually seem to be on the side of the illegal boat people themselves. But anyway, according to Techni UK's poll for Express, Labour have gone up to 44%, Conservatives are now down to 24%, Lib Dems are now on 10%, and Reform UK are now 9%, and the Greens, well, they have gained a point to 7%. Although, to be honest, let's face it, who would actually vote for them? But anyway, it does say that if this was a result of the election calculus, the election prediction website, suggests that the Conservatives would suffer their worst ever result in the party's 346-year history with just 114 seats. And Sir Keir Starmer, the Labour leader, would be swept into Downing Street with a majority of 260, which, if anything, in my opinion, would be an absolute nightmare for common sense. And, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that's common sense that Rishi should win, because it isn't. I personally think that Reform should win, but unfortunately in our two-party system, that isn't exactly likely to happen, is it? Rishi, in my eyes, has gone too far left with quite a lot of his policies. And of course, rising tax rather than lowering it. But anyway, the poll of 1,641 British voters also revealed that less than half, 45% of the Conservative voters from the 2019 general election would now only support the party at the next election. And 1 in 10 will not vote. 13% have switched to Reform UK, and 12% have now gone to Labour, and another 13 are uncertain, which presumably means more than likely won't vote. The findings fuel fears that the Tories are heading for a catastrophic defeat, and it comes after the former Cabinet Minister, Sir Simon Clarke, called on Rishi Sunak to quit as Prime Minister this week for the party to go down basically like a lead balloon. And in my eyes, this probably is really a good idea. I mean, yes, it would look ridiculous them changing leader again, I admit that. However, they're going to lose with Rishi, aren't they? He has peed a load of people off, including myself, with not only the things that he's done, but also for what he actually did to Boris. Remember, Boris was voted in by quite a big majority, and the Conservatives should have realised that Boris, regardless of Partygate, of course, is actually a big vote winner, and kind of kicked themselves in the balls there, haven't they? But anyway, let's have a look at this table. And as you can see, it says here that the Conservatives are on course to lose 262 seats, which, let's face it, is a massive chunk, isn't it? With their predicted seats only at 114. Labour, on the other hand, they're predicted to get 258 seats, giving them quite a worrying majority, and therefore their predicted seats are 455, which is going to be a big problem, isn't it, with all the woke policies they're no doubtly going to inflict on us all, along with, of course, any tax rises or Brexit reversal plans that they indeed have. But Reform, you'd think Reform would do quite well if they're getting, or presumably going to be getting, quite a big chunk of Tory voters going across to them. Well, unfortunately, even though that their predicted votes have gone up by 9%, this table still says that they unfortunately will still get no seats in the House of Commons, which is a bit crazy really if you think about it, isn't it? Surely if a party is doing well, you'd like to think that they'd at least get 1 or 2 seats at least, but unfortunately not as this appears. But hopefully things may change and that will indeed happen. And yes, I know 1,100 and whatever it was isn't the whole country, although they're presumably still Conservative voters at the end of the day. So therefore, in my eyes, this is actually quite worrying, especially if Labour does get that big number of seats as predicted.